Gut, the inside story of our body's most underrated organ, by Giulia Enders. Picture this. 17-year-old Giulia Enders notices a weird little sore on her right leg. No big deal, right? Except it won't heal. A month passes, and her doctor is completely baffled, throwing cream prescriptions at a problem that just keeps spreading. Before long, these mysterious sores have taken over both legs, her arms, her back, even popping up on her face. For an entire year, she's wearing tights in scorching summer heat, desperately trying to hide the weeping wounds from soaking through her clothes. The doctors? Absolutely useless. They throw around vague diagnoses, ask probing questions about her stress levels, and basically hint that maybe, just maybe, she's making the whole thing up in her head. Frustrated and feeling utterly alone, Giulia does what any of us would do when the so-called experts completely fail us. She dives down the research rabbit hole herself. Late one night, bleary-eyed and desperate, she stumbles across a medical report about a man with nearly identical symptoms. And there it is, buried in the details. His nightmare started right after taking antibiotics. Suddenly, everything clicks. Just weeks before her first sore appeared, she'd taken antibiotics too. A wild thought begins forming, a question that will completely transform her life and eventually change how millions of people understand their own bodies. She thinks, what if this isn't actually a skin problem at all? What if the real villain is lurking inside me? What if those antibiotics absolutely wrecked my gut? From that light bulb moment, she stops treating her skin like the enemy and starts treating it as a symptom of an intestinal rebellion. She overhauls her diet, eliminates certain foods, experiments with good bacteria, and slowly, almost miraculously, her skin begins healing. That experience lights an absolute fire in her. It teaches her something profound. Knowledge really is power. It launches her into medical school and inspires her to write a book that takes the entire world by storm, selling over 4 million copies and becoming a New York Times bestseller. And here's the kicker, it's not a diet book, it's an adventure story. Today, we're diving headfirst into that adventure. We're exploring the fascinating world revealed in Giulia Enders' masterpiece, Gut, the inside story of our body's most underrated organ. And I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll never think about your body, or that quiet, mysterious organ churning away inside you, the same way again. You'll understand that you're not just a person. You're an entire planet, absolutely teeming with life. And the secret to your health, your mood, even your thoughts, might just be hiding in the absolute last place you'd ever think to look. Most of us walk through life with a pretty standard picture of ourselves. The brain is the command center, the brilliant executive upstairs running the entire operation. The heart is the engine, that loyal, tireless pump keeping everything alive. But the gut? For most people, the gut is that awkward, embarrassing relative we avoid mentioning at dinner parties. It's good for little more than occasional gurgles, the random bit of, shall we say, steam, and the daily bathroom pilgrimage. We're certainly not proud of it. Actually, most of us are kind of ashamed of it. Giulia Enders is here to shake up that entire perspective. She asks us to look again, to look closer. She tells us that if we could see beyond what's visible to the naked eye, we'd realize we're massively underestimating one of the most extraordinary and intelligent organs in our entire body. The gut, she reveals, is basically a universe unto itself. It houses 2/3 of our immune system. It cranks out over 20 unique hormones. It even has its own nervous system, a second brain so complex and independent that it could function perfectly fine even if you completely severed its connection to the brain in your head. Our journey into this hidden universe doesn't start in the belly, though. It kicks off in a place we think we know intimately, our mouth. The mouth, Enders explains, is the grand gateway to the gut, and it's absolutely packed with secrets. Run your tongue along the inside of your cheeks, and you'll feel 2 tiny bumps opposite your upper molars. Those aren't from accidentally biting your cheek. They're the parotid papillae, the openings for your salivary glands. These glands produce over a liter of saliva every single day, and that saliva is way more than just water. It's basically filtered blood, loaded with hormones, immune system products, and even a natural painkiller called opioorphin. Opioorphin, only discovered in 2006, is actually more powerful than morphine. We only produce tiny amounts, obviously, but it's enough to make a mouth sore, which would be absolutely excruciating on your elbow, feel totally manageable. This is why your sore throat often feels better after eating. Chewing stimulates production of this amazing natural painkiller. But saliva isn't just about comfort. It's also your first line of defense. The glands shoot out microscopic nets made of proteins called mucins. These nets, like something straight out of a superhero movie, trap bad bacteria before they can wreak havoc on your teeth and gums. Further back, at the root of your tongue, lies what Enders describes as an alien landscape of pink domes. These are your lingual tonsils, part of a ring of immune tissue encircling your entire throat. This is essentially the body's primary training camp for your immune system. Every time you eat, drink, or even breathe, this tissue samples tiny particles from the outside world. Inside, an army of immune cells is being trained, learning to distinguish between a harmless piece of apple and a dangerous virus. This is where your body first learns to protect itself. From the mouth, food begins its remarkable journey down the esophagus. We might think of it as a simple tube, but it's actually a master of movement, performing what breakdancers call the worm. It executes a perfect wave, widening to let food pass and closing behind it, ensuring nothing slides back up. This process is so automatic, so independent of gravity, that you could literally eat a piece of cake while doing a headstand, and it would still arrive safely in your stomach. And the stomach itself? It's a marvel of engineering. We often think of a stomachache as pain low in our belly, but your stomach actually sits much higher, starting just below your left nipple. It's not just a simple pouch. It's cleverly lopsided. The shorter right side acts like an express lane for liquids, letting water flow straight through to the next station. But solid food plops against the longer, larger side, where it's held back for serious churning and breakdown. The stomach is essentially two specialized organs, masquerading as one. Here, in this lopsided pouch, the real work begins. Your stomach can churn a piece of steak for up to 6 hours, using powerful acids and muscular contractions to grind it into microscopic particles. Only when these particles are small enough do they pass through the gatekeeper, a small sphincter muscle, into the next and most crucial phase of digestion. This is where we enter the engine room of the body, the small intestine. If you could shrink down and tour your own small intestine, you wouldn't find the dark, gloomy tunnel you might expect. Instead, you'd find yourself in a breathtakingly beautiful world, a soft, pink, velvety landscape that's surprisingly clean and almost completely smell-free. The true genius of the small intestine is its architecture. It's an absolute master of maximizing space. The inside is covered in massive folds. On top of those folds are millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi. And if you zoom in even further, you'd see that every single cell on those villi is covered in its own microscopic protrusions, called microvilli. Enders gives us a stunning sense of scale. If you took your small intestine and ironed out all its folds, all its villi, and all its microvilli, it would cover an entire tennis court. All of that is somehow packed neatly inside your abdomen. But why does it need all this surface area? Because this is where the outside world truly becomes part of you. The goal of digestion is to take something external, an apple, bread, a steak, and break it down into molecules so tiny that your body can absorb them and use them for energy. Nature has beautiful simplicity. Everything we eat, whether plant or animal, is made from the same basic building blocks, sugars, fats, and amino acids. Your small intestine is lined with digestive enzymes that act like tiny molecular scissors, snipping your food apart until it's reduced to these fundamental components. A piece of whole grain bread which doesn't taste sweet at all, is just a long, complex chain of sugar molecules. The enzyme scissors snip that chain apart, and what you're left with is pure sugar, which your body absorbs for a slow, steady energy release. A candy bar, on the other hand, is already broken down. It gets absorbed almost instantly, which is why you get that sudden rush followed by the inevitable crash. Fats get special treatment. They're so valuable, so energy-dense, that your body has a dedicated system for them. Unlike sugars and proteins, which go straight into the bloodstream and head to the liver for processing, fats are absorbed into a completely separate network, the lymphatic system. This system is like the bloodstream's quiet sidekick. And all the fat you eat, whether it's from healthy extra virgin olive oil or greasy fast food fries, is collected by this system and delivered directly to your heart, completely bypassing the liver's initial detoxification process. This is kind of a startling revelation. The quality of fats you eat has an immediate and direct impact on your heart and blood vessels. Good fats, like those in cold-pressed olive oil, act like a soothing balm. Bad fats, Enders warns, are delivered straight to your cardiovascular system with zero quality control. Once these building blocks are absorbed, they're distributed to every single one of the trillions of cells in your body. A sugar molecule from an apple might end up in a skin cell on your arm, where it's burned for energy. This process releases a tiny bit of heat, and when it happens in countless cells simultaneously, it's literally what keeps your body at a constant, warm temperature. The food you eat literally becomes the warmth you feel. But what happens to the parts of our food that our own enzymes can't break down? The tough fibers from vegetables, for instance. This is where the story takes a fascinating turn, moving from our body's machinery to the incredible, invisible world living inside us. These leftovers travel from the small intestine into the large intestine, and here we meet the true stars of the show, our gut microbes. If you thought the architecture of the small intestine was impressive, buckle up. Our gut is home to around 100 trillion bacteria. To put that in perspective, you have about 10 times more bacterial cells in your body than you have human cells. By cell count, you're only 10% human. Your microbiome, this bustling city of microbes, weighs up to 2 kilograms, about the same as your brain. We're not just individuals. We are, as Enders so beautifully puts it, entire ecosystems. For most of history, we've thought of bacteria as the enemy, nasty germs to be feared and destroyed. But the vast majority of these creatures aren't just harmless. They're absolutely essential to our survival. We've co-evolved with them over millions of years, living in a deeply symbiotic relationship. This relationship begins at the moment of birth. As an unborn baby, you live in a completely sterile world, the womb. You have zero bacteria. Your first encounter with this microbial world is what Enders calls a bacterial baptism. During natural birth, you're coated in your mother's protective vaginal and gut flora. These are the founding fathers of your own personal microbial colony. They're your first line of defense, your first immune system trainers. A baby born by cesarean section, however, misses this baptism entirely. Their first contact is with the skin flora of doctors and nurses, and the bacteria of the hospital environment. It can take these babies months, or even longer, to develop a normal gut population, and studies show they have an increased risk of developing allergies, asthma, and obesity later in life. After birth, breastfeeding continues this process. Breast milk is absolutely remarkable. It contains not only perfect nutrition but also special sugars that we, as humans, cannot digest. They aren't for the baby, they're for the baby's bacteria. Specifically, they're food for a group of bacteria called bifidobacteria. These bacteria are crucial for training the infant immune system, and children who have low levels in their first year have a significantly higher risk of being overweight later. By age 3, your gut flora has stabilized into a relatively mature and unique population. It's like a bacterial fingerprint. If you took a swab from your dog, scientists could likely identify you as the owner just by matching bacterial signatures. Your gut flora is a living record of your life, where you've been, what you've eaten, and even who you've kissed. So what are all these bacteria actually doing down there? They're essentially a second digestive system. They feast on the things we can't digest, like fiber and vegetables. In return, they provide us with incredible benefits. They manufacture essential vitamins, like B12 and vitamin K. They break down toxins, but most importantly, they produce special nutrients for the cells lining our gut, keeping the gut wall healthy and strong. These bacteria provide us with about 10% of our daily energy. After 9 meals, your 10th meal is, in a way, on the house, a gift from your microbes. Scientists have even discovered that our gut bacteria can be sorted into 3 main types, or enterotypes, dominated by different bacterial families: Bacteroides, Prevotella, or Ruminococcus. Each type has different strengths. The Bacteroides type, for example, is brilliant at extracting maximum energy from food. People with this enterotype might gain weight more easily than others, even eating the same amount, because their bacteria are just that efficient. The Prevotella type is better at producing vitamin B1, crucial for our nerves. This new science is revealing how a person's microbiome can influence their tendency toward obesity. There are several theories. First is what we just discussed: the chubby bacteria that are just too good at extracting calories. Another theory involves low-grade inflammation. An unhealthy diet, particularly one high in bad fats, can make the gut wall slightly leaky, allowing bacterial toxins into the bloodstream. This puts your body in a constant state of low-key infection, which signals it to store more fat. But perhaps the most radical idea is that our gut bacteria might influence our cravings. When you have a sudden, desperate craving for chocolate or chips, is that really you? Or is it your gut microbes? The theory is that different gangs of bacteria crave different foods. A population thriving on sugar might be able to send signals to your brain that make you crave sugar. They might even reward you for eating it by producing mood-altering substances. This is still cutting-edge research, but it opens up a mind-bending possibility. We're not just feeding ourselves, we're feeding the trillion-headed creature inside us. Of course, not all microbes are friendly. The book also introduces us to some genuine villains, and their stories read like thrillers. Take Salmonella. Enders traces its journey from a tortoise doing its business in a sack of grain in Africa, to that grain being flown to Europe to feed a chicken, to that chicken ending up in your kitchen. The real danger isn't the cooked chicken, but the thawed chicken juice in your sink that contaminates the lettuce for your salad. Then there's Helicobacter pylori, a bacterium living in the stomachs of half of all humans. For decades, doctors believed stomach ulcers were caused by stress. But in the 1980s, a determined Australian doctor named Barry Marshall was convinced this bacterium was the real culprit. When nobody believed him, he did something absolutely unthinkable. He mixed up a culture of H. pylori in his lab and drank it. Days later, he developed severe stomach inflammation, proving his theory. He and his colleague later won the Nobel Prize for their discovery. H. pylori is humanity's oldest pet, having lived with us for over 50,000 years. It can be dangerous, causing ulcers and increasing stomach cancer risk. But new research suggests it might also have benefits, protecting us from asthma and allergies by training our immune system not to overreact. But the most fascinating villain is a tiny parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. It comes from cat guts, and its life cycle is absolutely astonishing. It needs to get from an intermediate host, like a rat, into its final host, a cat. So how does it accomplish this? It hacks the rat's brain. A rat infected with toxoplasma loses its natural fear of cats. In fact, it becomes attracted to the smell of cat urine, essentially offering itself up to be eaten. Here's where it gets really strange. About a third of all humans are infected with toxoplasma, usually without any symptoms. But scientists started wondering, if it can change a rat's behavior so dramatically, could it be subtly influencing ours? They started testing people. And the results are genuinely chilling. People infected with toxoplasma are significantly more likely to be involved in traffic accidents. They tend to be more risk-taking and have slower reaction times. Some studies have even found a strong correlation between toxoplasma infection and suicide attempts, and schizophrenia. This tiny parasite, born in a cat's gut, can subtly influence some of our most complex human behaviors. This brings us to the most profound part of the journey, the connection between gut and brain. This isn't just a vague gut feeling. It's a physical, biological reality. The gut and brain are in constant, deep conversation. Their main line of communication is a massive nerve called the vagus nerve. Think of it as a superhighway running directly from your belly to your head. And incredibly, about 90% of the signals on this highway travel not from brain to gut, but from gut to brain. Your gut is constantly gathering intelligence. It knows what you've eaten, monitors the hormones swimming in your blood, and listens to the hum of trillions of bacteria living there. It's the body's largest sensory organ, and it sends all this information up to the brain. Scientists are just beginning to understand what this means for mental health. In one groundbreaking study on mice, researchers found that a particular strain of bacteria, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, could significantly reduce their anxiety and depression-like behaviors. The mice became braver and less stressed, but when scientists cut the vagus nerve, the effect completely disappeared. The bacteria were literally talking to the brain through this nerve. This has huge implications for humans. Think about irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. For a long time, it was dismissed as a psychological problem, but brain scans of IBS patients show something remarkable. When a small balloon is inflated in their gut, a sensation a healthy person wouldn't even notice, the emotional centers of their brain light up with alarm. Their gut is so sensitive that even normal digestive processes are interpreted as threats, sending a constant stream of negative anxious signals to the brain. An unhappy gut can directly cause an unhappy mind. The connection works both ways. When your brain is stressed, it prepares for fight or flight. To save energy for this emergency, it borrows from the gut. It reduces blood flow, slows digestion, and lowers production of the protective mucus lining. This is fine for short-term crises, but if you live in chronic stress, your brain is constantly draining resources from your gut. The gut wall weakens, the bacterial environment deteriorates, and it starts sending its own distress signals back to the brain, leading to fatigue, loss of appetite, and a general feeling of being unwell. It's a vicious cycle. So what can we do? How can we become good gardeners of our inner world? Enders offers a simple, powerful framework based on 3 concepts: antibiotics, probiotics, and prebiotics. Antibiotics are against life. They're lifesavers when we have serious bacterial infections, but they're like dropping a bomb on your gut's ecosystem. They kill the bad guys, but also wipe out countless good guys. This is why it's crucial to use them only when absolutely necessary. Taking antibiotics for a viral cold is not only useless, it decimates your gut flora, leaving it vulnerable. Probiotics are for life. These are living, beneficial bacteria we can eat. You find them in yogurt, kefir, and other fermented foods. They act like temporary workers, coming in to help restore balance, especially after antibiotics or a bout of diarrhea. But the most powerful tool we have, Enders argues, is prebiotics. Prebiotics are before life. They aren't bacteria themselves. They're food for our good bacteria. They're special types of dietary fiber our bodies can't digest, so they travel all the way to the large intestine, where they become a feast for our microbial allies. When we feed our good bacteria, they thrive, multiply, and outcompete the bad bacteria. And where do we find these prebiotics? In wonderful everyday foods. Things like onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, artichokes, and even cold potatoes and rice. When you cook and then cool starchy foods, some starches change structure and become resistant, meaning you can't digest them, but your bacteria can. That cold potato salad in your fridge isn't just leftovers, it's a gourmet meal for your microbiome. The book ends with a simple, hands-on guide to making your own sauerkraut. It's a beautiful closing metaphor. By taking simple cabbage, shredding it, adding salt, and letting the natural bacteria on its leaves do their work, you're participating in an ancient tradition. You're cultivating life. You're creating food that's more nutritious, more alive, and more beneficial than when you started. It's a reminder that we're not just passive consumers of health. We're active participants. We're the caretakers of this incredible, complex, and beautiful world inside us. Giulia Enders' journey, which began with a mysterious sore on her leg, leads us to one of the most profound truths about ourselves. Our health, our happiness, and our very sense of self don't originate just in our heads. They're born from the deep and constant conversation between our two brains, the one in our skull, and the equally important one, hidden deep inside our gut. Reading gut is like putting on glasses for the first time and realizing you've been walking through a blurry world. Suddenly, things you never paid attention to snap into sharp focus. A gurgle in your stomach isn't just random noise. It's the housekeeper of the small intestine doing its cleanup sweep. A craving for something sour isn't just a whim. It could be an ancient, intuitive desire for the good bacteria found in fermented foods. The most powerful lesson from this book, for me, is the radical shift in perspective it demands. We're taught to think of ourselves as singular beings, as me, but Enders shows us that me is actually we. We're walking, talking ecosystems, a symbiotic collection of human and microbial life. And this isn't just a quirky scientific fact. It has profound implications for how we live. It means our health isn't just about our own cells, but about the health of trillions of tiny organisms we host. When we eat, we're not just feeding ourselves. We're feeding our inner world. And what we choose to feed it determines whether that world is a thriving, peaceful garden or a chaotic, inflamed battlefield. This idea is incredibly empowering. It moves us away from feeling helpless, where we're simply victims of our genes or circumstances. It makes us gardeners. We have the power to cultivate our inner ecosystem. We can choose to plant seeds of good health with prebiotic foods, and we can choose to avoid poisoning the soil with unnecessary antibiotics or a diet of processed junk. So how can we start applying these lessons today in simple, practical ways? First, try this simple trick for how you sit on the toilet. As Enders explains, modern toilets put a kink in our digestive tract, making elimination difficult. By simply placing a small footstool in front of your toilet to raise your knees, you straighten that pathway. It's a tiny change that can make a huge difference, especially for anyone struggling with constipation. Second, become a microbe farmer. You don't have to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Just pick one prebiotic food this week and add it to your meals. Maybe it's adding more garlic and onions when you cook. Maybe it's trying leek and potato soup. Or maybe it's making potato salad and having it cold the next day. Think of it as leaving a thank you gift for the trillions of workers inside you. And third, start listening to the conversation between your two brains. Next time you feel a wave of anxiety or a dip in your mood for no apparent reason, don't just look for external causes. Ask yourself, how does my gut feel? What have I eaten in the last 24 hours? Did I sleep well? This simple act of turning your attention inward, of acknowledging the gut as a source of emotional information, is a revolutionary act of self-awareness. In the end, gut is more than just a book about digestion. It's a book about connection. It reminds us that our mind isn't separate from our body, that we're not separate from the natural world, and that even the smallest, most invisible creatures can have powerful impacts on our lives. Giulia Enders began her journey looking for a cure for her skin, but what she found was a whole new way of understanding what it means to be human. She's given us a map to a new continent, a vast and fascinating world that isn't in some distant galaxy, but is, and always has been, right inside of us. That was a summary of Gut, the inside story of our body's most underrated organ, by Giulia Enders. We've explored some incredible highlights today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you hold the book in your hands. It's in the quiet moments, when one of Giulia's charming illustrations or a simple, brilliant analogy hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or resonated on a deeper level, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning facts. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see yourself and the world within you. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.